The restaurant had almost emptied by the time Emma looked down at her phone for what felt like the 100th time. The candle on the small corner table had burned halfway down, its flickering light reflecting in the untouched glass of water sitting across from her. Every passing minute tightened the knot in her chest. She had promised herself that this blind date would be different. She had promised herself that she would stop expecting disappointment. But as another couple laughed while leaving hand in hand, she could feel that familiar ache settling back into her heart. Just as she reached for her purse, determined to leave before anyone noticed the tears gathering in her eyes, the front door opened, not to reveal the man she had been waiting for, but 3 tiny girls with matching curls, matching blue dresses, and matching hopeful smiles. They walked straight toward her table as if they had known her all their lives, and the oldest among them took a deep breath before quietly saying, "My daddy's sorry he's late." If you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories like this to people around the world. Emma froze. For a long moment she wondered if she had misunderstood what the little girl had said. The 3 children stood patiently beside her table, each holding one another's hands as though they had practiced this moment together. Their tiny shoes were damp from the rain outside, and one of them clutched a stuffed rabbit whose ears had clearly been loved for years. They looked nervous, but not frightened. Instead, they carried the quiet confidence of children who had been taught to be brave even when life demanded more courage than they should ever have needed. The restaurant had become strangely silent. A few remaining customers glanced toward the unusual scene, while one of the waitresses smiled softly, unsure whether she should intervene. Emma slowly lowered herself back into her chair. She had spent most of her 34 years believing life always found new ways to disappoint people who dared to hope. After losing both parents before finishing college, she had devoted herself entirely to building a career as a pediatric physical therapist. Helping injured children walk again had become her purpose because fixing broken hearts had never seemed possible, especially her own. Love had come close once. Years earlier she had accepted a proposal from a man who appeared thoughtful, dependable, and kind. 3 weeks before their wedding she discovered he had been living another life in another city. The betrayal shattered something inside her that never fully healed. Since then, blind dates had become something she reluctantly accepted only after endless encouragement from friends who insisted not every story ended in heartbreak. Tonight was supposed to prove them right. Instead, she was sitting across from 3 little strangers apologizing on behalf of a man she had never met. Emma smiled gently despite her confusion. The oldest girl carefully climbed onto the empty chair across from her without waiting to be invited, while her sisters remained standing beside her. They looked so alike that only their slightly different hairstyles made it possible to tell them apart. One wore 2 braids. Another had a pink ribbon tied around her ponytail. The smallest kept brushing curls away from eyes that sparkled with innocent curiosity. The oldest folded her tiny hands together exactly the way adults did during serious conversations. She explained that their father had received an emergency phone call while driving to the restaurant. Someone at the construction site where he worked had been injured, and because he supervised the evening shift, he couldn't simply ignore it. He had asked a family friend to bring the girls to the restaurant with a message because he didn't want Emma thinking he had forgotten or stood her up. Emma couldn't help noticing how carefully every word had been chosen. Children usually stumbled through explanations. These girls spoke as though they had learned responsibility much earlier than childhood should require. She asked where their father was now. The little girl admitted she didn't know exactly. She only knew he had said he would come as soon as he could because keeping promises mattered. Something about those words reached a place inside Emma she thought had disappeared years ago. Keeping promises mattered. Her father had always said exactly the same thing. The waitress approached with a warm smile and asked whether the girls would like something to eat while they waited. All 3 immediately looked toward Emma instead of answering. That small gesture revealed everything. They had been taught to respect others before themselves. Emma nodded. Within minutes, grilled cheese sandwiches, apple slices, and warm chocolate milk appeared at the table. The girls thanked everyone who served them. Not once did they complain or ask for dessert. Instead, they carefully split every French fry into equal piles, making sure each sister received exactly the same amount. Emma watched in quiet amazement. Children raised with love often carried invisible evidence of it. These girls certainly did. As they ate, bits and pieces of their lives slowly emerged. Their mother had passed away 2 years earlier after a sudden illness. Since then, their father had worked 2 jobs while somehow managing to braid hair every morning, pack school lunches, attend every parent-teacher meeting, and read bedtime stories no matter how exhausted he became. Emma listened without interrupting. She found herself imagining a man she had never met standing alone in a kitchen before sunrise, trying to tie ribbons into 3 little heads of hair while making pancakes and searching for missing shoes. She imagined him falling asleep in a chair after midnight because laundry still needed folding. She imagined the loneliness hidden behind those ordinary routines. For reasons she couldn't explain, her irritation about the missed date slowly disappeared. Outside, the rain continued falling harder. Nearly an hour passed. The restaurant manager quietly informed Emma they would soon be closing. Still no father arrived. The youngest triplet began rubbing sleepy eyes. The middle sister leaned against Emma's arm without even realizing she had done it. It felt strangely natural. Emma had spent years helping children recover from injuries, comforting frightened families, and celebrating impossible victories when tiny patients finally took their first independent steps. Holding a sleepy child wasn't unfamiliar. What surprised her was how quickly these 3 girls had begun trusting someone they had only just met. Perhaps children recognized kindness more easily than adults did. Finally, the restaurant door burst open. A tall man entered wearing a rain-soaked construction jacket covered in dust and dried concrete. His breathing was uneven as though he had run the last several blocks. His face carried overwhelming exhaustion mixed with panic. The moment the triplets saw him, they raced across the room. He dropped to one knee, wrapping all 3 daughters into one enormous embrace before closing his eyes in visible relief. Only after making certain they were safe did he finally look toward Emma. The expression on his face stopped her heart for reasons she couldn't understand. There was no arrogance. No excuse prepared in advance. Only genuine regret. He looked like someone carrying the weight of an entire world alone. For several seconds neither of them spoke. He approached slowly, apologizing with such sincerity that every word seemed heavier than the last. He explained the workplace accident, the ambulance, the police report, and the endless responsibility that had delayed him. He admitted he should have canceled but couldn't bring himself to disappoint someone before they had even met. Emma believed him. Not because his explanation was perfect. Because his eyes carried the unmistakable honesty of someone who had spent years putting everyone else's needs before his own. The girls quietly gathered their jackets while watching the 2 adults with hopeful anticipation. None of them noticed the elderly waitress standing across the room smiling to herself. She had served thousands of customers over 3 decades. Very few first meetings began with 3 little girls delivering an apology. Even fewer ended with strangers looking at one another as though fate had quietly rewritten both of their lives. Emma had arrived expecting another painful reminder that hope was dangerous. Instead, she found herself wondering whether the most extraordinary beginnings sometimes arrive disguised as life's biggest disappointments. And as the rain continued falling outside beneath the glowing city lights, none of them could possibly have imagined that this unexpected evening was only the first page of a story that would test every promise, every sacrifice, and every definition of what it truly meant to become a family.